Yeah, this was a gagging order. This was an injunction that they were seeking today on the last day of trial. They were asking the judge to give an immediate, permanent injunction for me speaking out against the plaintiff, Cermaq, the Norwegian company. It was a very wide injunction, and the judge thankfully ruled that she wasn't going to make a ruling today, and she was going to defer her decision until later. So she refused to make an immediate injunction, but what they were asking for was a restraint of trade. They were asking for a gagging order, an injunction preventing me from saying anything about salmon farming and the plaintiff, Cermaq, who controls a significant portion of the salmon farming industry around the world.
It wasn't more than that. I gathered basically anybody that aided and abetted you, or even myself, so if I went along the same lines as you.
Yes, I can show you the piece of paper, but it talked about my servants, any associates, and really was a very wide-ranging injunction. But this cut to the very heart of what this company is seeking. This lawsuit is not about salmon farming. This lawsuit is about restraint of freedom of speech, and this lawsuit is about the Norwegian government trying to abuse the Canadian courts to clamp down on legitimate criticism. Because the Salmon Farming Kills campaign was so effective, because Salmon Farming Kills targeted the whole Norwegian industry around the world, this company, which is owned by the Norwegian government, tried to stop that criticism. But what it succeeded in doing is actually ratchet up global criticism. So we have, just this week, the editor of a fly fishing magazine in Sweden, Martin Falkland, publishing some of the cigarette packets, and the editorial said, "So sue me." He said, "I agree with Don and the Salmon Farming Kills campaign, so sue me then." You've got people around the world republishing the mock cigarette packets. So this injunction from Cermaq was to try and stop that. But even if it had succeeded today, there's no way on earth, with the power of the internet, with just people disseminating truthful information, that they could stop the spread of this Salmon Farming Kills campaign, which really has gone viral.
Now, didn't their lawyer basically infer that you were lying, especially about the scientific data you were presenting? Can you tell me what exactly is in fish farm salmon that is dangerous to your health, to an individual's health, apart from what it does to wild salmon?
There was a significant scientific paper in 2004 based upon samples from supermarkets around the world that found cancer-causing chemicals, that's DDT, dieldrin, dioxins, PCBs, chlordane. These are all known carcinogens. They were at very high levels in farm salmon, and that led to a whole suite of scientific papers showing that the consumption of farm salmon elevated cancer risk. So that's in the science. And just like big tobacco managed to bury the science, they smeared the science against the health impacts of smoking. The salmon farming industry has done exactly the same. So the Salmon Farming Kills campaign used mock cigarette packets. It drew the parallels, the analogies, the parody with smoking. But it's exactly the same. If you read the latest book, Merchants of Doubt, it shows that the same tactics of big tobacco is used in the smearing of the science for global warming and other industries. Salmon farming fits into exactly the same message, exactly the same pattern of denial. And I think this is the heart of the lawsuit. And if the judge cannot see the links, the parallels between smoking and the way the tobacco industry denied and smeared the science, and salmon farming industry who's denied the science with contaminants, the spread of sea lice, escapes, the killing of marine mammals, then it's going to be a complete joke. This is going to make a mockery story of the Canadian justice system. And I think the world is watching, and Justice Elaine Adair has a real job on her hands, because she's got to balance corporate reputation, this is the Norwegian government represented here, against freedom of speech. And whichever way she comes down on is going to have a significant effect on criticism or not of salmon farming. So if we win this fight, if we uphold free speech, the whole world will have more degrees of freedom of speech. But if she rules against, then there's serious questions to be asked of the Canadian legal system, because this lawsuit, this is effectively a slap suit. This could not have happened in any other jurisdiction.
Now, are they using the same PR company that the cigarette companies used and the logging industry here in BC used, Hill & Knowlton?
On the stand, Mary Ellen Walling, the chief executive of the BC Salmon Farmers Association, admitted that in 2002 the salmon farming industry here in British Columbia hired the same PR company, Hill & Knowlton, as those companies that were associated with the Tobacco Institute, the 3 Mile Island disaster, the Iraq War. So the same PR company, Hill & Knowlton, that massages the facts, that denies scientific impacts of smoking, was hired by the salmon farming industry. That's how bad salmon farming is. The more you advertise a product, the more you have to hire the services of a PR lobbying company, the more dangerous a product is. So this is exactly the same situation with the smoking industry. The salmon farming industry have hired these merchants of doubt, these companies that promote a product as healthy, when we all know that farm salmon contains cancer-causing chemicals. So these spin doctors that promote salmon farming as the panacea for the food problem, farm salmon as healthy and nutritious, are ignoring the scientific facts that salmon farming kills wild salmon, and farm salmon itself is a hazardous and contaminated product. I'm proud to be a scientist, and I've researched salmon farming for 20 years, and I know that salmon farms, there's peer-reviewed science that shows that salmon farms spread diseases. They have environmental impacts. Escapes can cause environmental damage. And then the contaminants in farm salmon, these are cancer-causing contaminants. This is in the scientific journal Science. Yet here you had in the lawsuit the salmon farming industry arguing that farm salmon was healthy for human health, that there was no contaminants in farm salmon. You had Mary Ellen Walling from the BC Salmon Farmers talking about the BC Salmon Facts campaign, and it said farm salmon is free of contaminants. Now that's completely out of kilter. That's completely opposite to the facts. So the BC Salmon Facts campaign is actually fiction. So a lot of the Salmon Farming Kills campaign was grounded in science, it was grounded in facts, yet you had the plaintiff, Cermaq, suggesting that it was an abuse of the law, that it was fiction, that I had abandoned truth. Anybody who knows me as a campaigner knows that I'm a champion of truth and a defender of free speech. So it was really surreal to watch the way the lawyers were twisting my words. They were twisting the situation, and thankfully the judge did not rule for an immediate injunction against me, and we'll see over the summer or maybe later in 2012 what the judge actually comes up with in terms of a ruling. But she did not clamp down free speech, so it's still allowed for people to say that salmon farming kills, that salmon farming spreads disease. We all know this is true, but if this ruling had been allowed, then that would have been prohibited. It would have been banned. People around the world, not just me, on Facebook, would have been censored. They would have had to take down the Facebook profile pictures.